Hello and welcome to Candidate Question Time 2019. Hi, I'm Eimontas Jankauskis. I'm going to be your host for this evening. In tonight's show, we're going to be talking to some of the candidates running for full-time officer positions within the Students' Union. Each of the candidates are going to be asked 2 questions, the first of which is going to be a general question based on the role that they are going to be running for, and the second of which is going to be based on their individual manifestos. The voting is going to be opening on the 4th of March at 9 a.m. and will be open until the 8th of March at 5 p.m. If you'd like to vote in these elections, you can go over to www.sussexstudent.com/elections. So we're going to be jumping straight into the questions. First up, we have Peter Anson running for the role of Activities Officer. We're going to be taking a look at some of his manifesto points, alongside some manifesto points from Becky Joann, who unfortunately couldn't make it today. Have a look at this.
Hi, I'm Becky and I'm rerunning to be the Activities Officer. In the last 8 months, I've really enjoyed being accountable and student-focused and putting students at the heart of everything we do. If I'm re-elected, I will create an SU app, bring back varsity, increase personal development opportunities by having funding available, and create a new reward and recognition scheme to make it easily accessible for all sizes of student groups. Vote Becky for Activities.
Hi, I'm Peter Anson and I'm running to be your Activities Officer. As your Activities Officer, I will re-empower societies, communities and international students. As part of my manifesto, I want to develop a handbook bespoke to each nationality covering topics that most international students face as issues which local students do not face. In addition, I want to restore funding to societies, including the LEAF scheme, given the cuts that the university has imposed on the Students' Union. In addition, I want to create a loan scheme of free cameras that societies can use to promote their events. Thousands of events happen, and hardly any of them are actually recorded. Otherwise, I want to have a Society Expo hosting societies, sports and media in the best that Sussex can show in Brighton. Amongst other things, please have a look at my manifesto. Thank you.
All right, welcome back. I'm now joined in the studio with Mr. Peter Anson. Welcome to the show. All right, let's just jump straight into the questions. So the general question I have for you is, this year, the budget for the Leaves Reward Scheme has been cut down to £1,000. What are your thoughts on this, and what would you do to assure that the Students' Union encourages the development of student-led groups at Sussex?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. Actually, a lot with my manifesto touches on the cuts that societies have faced. To put an example, 2015 and 16, the funding that societies had available was £45,720. Currently, it's £27,000 when you account for the LEAF scheme as is, being that it's only £1,000. Firstly, that's the equivalent to an international student's tuition fees. We've got 4,000 students who are registered to societies right now, and probably many more who attend. All it takes is for one of them to drop out because there wasn't enough money for societies to be the best they can be, and the university in their cost-cutting measure has completely negated what they said. And I think merely by that statistic alone, in terms of lobbying the university, there's quite a lot of force showing that sort of image, really.
Perfect. And do you have any plans to, like, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do to encourage student-led groups?
Well, this is one of the things, is that with Activities Officer, because it's been predominantly sports-oriented for the last few years, I'm wanting to focus on societies and almost sort of reimagine what their social importance is. So one of the things that we have is, right now, 41% of students are international students. And when they start to university, it's a new, intimidating place. Many of them have never been to the UK beforehand. And naturally speaking, national societies, whether it's South Asian, Tamil, Brunei, Malaysian, Singaporean, etc., you know, it's a first call for them in that situation. And that's one of the things that I want to be more oriented at international students. And that's, as you may see from my manifesto, talking about handbooks and providing advice for them, namely on the legal situation. And secondary to that, even after Brexit, we don't necessarily know what the immigration status is going to be. It's going to be an interesting scenario for students. So in terms of student voice, as well as increasing funding and hopefully restoring it and maybe even getting it further, putting more of a social importance to societies, over 230 societies and 4,000 registered, you know, it's a central pillar to Sussex community.
Absolutely. My individual question about your manifesto actually touches on this a little bit. You say in your manifesto that you would like to create a handbook that would include details on immigration, tuition fees, university facilities, and etc., specific to each nationality.
Yeah.
The university has already several online resources available, and international student support already provides handbooks similar to the ones you're describing. How will your handbook differ, and why is this the responsibility of the activities officer?
I think, well, firstly, you're certainly correct about the International Students Office, and I'm not trying necessarily to compete with that. But I've spoken to committee members of these national societies as well as the international student reps on this issue, and I've heard about many scenarios where students haven't necessarily gone to those offices immediately, and they find having a personable relation of someone who is a similar nationality to them, and i.e. it tends to be committee members of this, and it tends to be a first sort of port call. And as that, it's trying to give a first guide and a first sort of reference. And the reason why I'm doing it is because there's been push from the international student reps to have a full-time international students officer, which there should be, especially when we have 41% of the students being international. And this is, I'm not suggesting that this is an alternative, but it's a stopgap solution that can help. And it makes it more personable. Societies, as I've underlined, play a huge social importance, and in many ways it's less intimidating for these students to talk to someone of their own sort of national society rather than going into an office and talking to a sort of university bureaucrat.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Well, those are the two questions that I have for you. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
No problem.
So next up, we're going to be talking to two of the undergraduate candidates. We have Charlotte Reed and Chris Harding coming into the studio in just a second. Let's have a quick look at their manifesto points.
Hi, I'm Charlotte and I'm running to be your undergraduate education officer. I want the university to publish hidden course costs, I want better feedback for assessments, and I want to revamp the student rep and student mentor schemes. I'm passionate about creating a learning community at Sussex, particularly by creating an interdepartmental undergraduate academic research journal and continuing the work of the current undergraduate officer on flexible learning spaces. Vote for me and we can all succeed with Reed.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm to be undergrad education officer. My manifesto is formed of four key principles. First of all, getting more out of your education than just a qualification. Second, closing the BME attainment gap at the university. Third, sorting out the simple issues that are pertinent with the university, such as lectures not being recorded and feedback being taking too long to come. And then fourth is improving the social aspects of the university, trying to find a way to reinvigorate the social life that was lost after the closure of East Slope. Thank you.
All right, welcome back to the studio. I'm joined now by Charlotte and Chris, who are both running for undergraduate officer roles. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, let's just jump straight into the questions. So I have a general question for both of you. One of the responsibilities of the undergraduate education officer is to ensure that the learning spaces and necessary resources are available for all areas of the student body. The overcrowding of the library has been an issue for many students. What are your thoughts on this, and what do you think could be done in order to assure that all students have access to appropriate study spaces? Charlotte, let's start with you.
Okay, so I think that the current undergraduate officer, Ella, has done an amazing job on this already. She's introduced more learning spaces, and she's introduced microwaves around the campus, and there's going to be a map released soon with all of these things on. I think that that's amazing, and I really want to continue what she's done. I think that more spaces need to be created in different buildings than the library, because I know for a fact that as soon as it gets to exam season, it is going to be overcrowded. There isn't going to be space. So I think that we've made a really good start, but I would like to keep the momentum going and continue to press the university to create these new spaces for all of the students.
Perfect, great. Chris, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's a big issue, and I think a lot of the students specifically as well is getting the right mixture of computer places you can study and desks. So especially with so much changing at the university, the building of the new East Slope, etc., suggestions of the creation of a West Slope, and then also maybe Falmer House moving around for the union. I think there's got to be a lot of creative thinking there. And I think as undergraduate officer, that's your role, to really lobby the university to get these spaces, especially as Charlotte says, with the library being such a difficult place to study in. Myself, I don't go to the library anymore. I tend to use Shawcross because I like the computer spaces. But yeah, there needs to be a lot of creative thinking. And now in this time of change, we have so much opportunity to work with the university. I think that's what I'd do. I'd focus on the changes that are happening to kind of lobby for more spaces.
Absolutely. All right, great. All right, we can move on to the individual manifesto questions, starting with Charlotte. One of your manifesto points is to improve the efficiency of the loop. Since it was launched last year, around 300 students have used this system. Why do you think it's a good way of getting feedback from the students, and how would you improve on it?
Okay, so I think the creation of the loop was very important. We do need a way to be able to give feedback on anything good and bad, but the way it's been implemented I don't think is efficient enough, because if only 300 students have used it, there are a lot more students that have opinions at the university. So I think that a way that I would improve it is to make it a lot more accessible, because I don't know if you've used the loop, but I know that I've tried using it before and I kind of there were so many options and I just kind of gave up in the middle of it. And I just think there needs to be more streamlined, more efficient, so that you can just give all of your opinions easily. Because I think the student voice is really important and it needs to be highlighted.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, Chris, moving on to yours. In your manifesto, you say that Sussex and many other universities offer little encouragement, support or communication about opportunities for further studies, extracurricular activities and research activities. Could you expand a little bit more on this, and what do you base this claim on? What do you think should be done to change this?
Sure. So I believe at the moment universities, not just Sussex, a lot of them around Britain, have kind of got this idea of what a student is. A student is someone that comes and pays $9 grand, they get their degree, they leave. So at the moment, there are great opportunities like the JRA. There's also language courses. I do a language course, I do an Arabic language course. So anyone can come along to those. Anyone outside the university, they pay £240. Students get a discount of £10, so it's £230 for 2 terms. Things like that. That's something that is kind of hidden because it's not communicated that well. But really, the university needs to be doing more. And this is what I'm talking about: getting more out of students' time at university. So yeah, coming back to the JRA, communicating that more efficiently. The way I found out, I actually went to a professor and I said, look, I'm really interested in taking my education a bit further. What can I do? And then it was at that point I was told. So creating ways to get that into lectures, potentially having a lecture right at the beginning of second year for the JRA, saying this is the availability of this, come and do it. Get the subscription up for that. I think the year I did it, so I did it last year, every student that applied got it, which is not a bad thing by any means, but I feel like we can get more students onto it. So things like that, and then creating greater subsidies for things like language courses, etc.
Perfect. All right. Thank you guys so much for your time. That's all the questions I have for you. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So next up, we have a couple of candidates coming in to run for postgraduate officer position. We have Benjamin Matthews and Afreen Begum coming in. So let's take a quick look at their manifesto points.
Hi, my name's Benjamin. I'm running for postgrad officer on the slate Running Mates. Our community inspires me every single day, and if elected, I will listen to you, work with you, and celebrate your successes. My slogan is clarity, solidarity, and community.
Hi everyone, my name is Afreen Begum and I'm running for Postgraduate Education Officer. I'm also a student rep here and an Indian councillor, and the main agenda that I will be running on is that I want more international friendly student support for postgraduate students. I want friendlier assessments. I want to decolonize our curriculum and also probably move towards separate spaces. Study spaces for postgraduate students, and I want to listen to everyone. I will hold regular workshops, regular meetings to know what people want, what postgraduate students need, and work with you. So if you want that, please vote for me.
All right, welcome back. We are now joined in the studio by Benjamin and Afreen. How are you guys?
Pretty great.
Good, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah,
great.
ready for this?
All right, let's just jump straight into the questions. So I have a general question for you guys. Most postgraduate students experience university life very differently from undergraduate students. Do you think the Students' Union offers enough support for postgraduate students, and how could you improve this? Let's start with Ben.
So yeah, you're exactly right. Most postgraduate students do experience a very different set of problems and also good experiences as well. The Student Union, I think the Student Union should be there to support in terms of not only the social side of things, but also in terms of academically as well, to enable the postgraduate students to have some kind of forum so that they can address issues that aren't currently being addressed can be addressed. So both academic, in academic ways and social ways are the two ways in which I would aim to support postgraduate students.
Great. All right, let's move on to your answer.
Okay, so yes, definitely. Like when I first came here, I'm from India, just to make sure. So when I came here, I found everything to be so different, to be honest. Like from my undergrad to my postgrad, the transition has been so drastically different. But yeah, I know that the Student Union was there to help. They did try to help, but there is so much more to be done. There is so much scope for more to be done, to be honest. Like as an international student, I face so many problems. Even my friends face so many problems and are still facing. Like for example, I would give you like, there is so much inconsistency when it comes to postgraduate students, especially in teaching, in feedback, marking criteria. Like I was in the law committee, law teaching committee meeting the other day, and the teachers were like, ah, yeah, we give mark on formative essays, and the other teachers were like, no, we don't. Like they themselves don't know whether they are supposed to give marks or not. And it becomes a problem for postgraduate students because we are here for 1 year and we want to make the best of it. If the teachers themselves or the faculty members themselves are not consistent enough, or between the schools also they are not consistent enough, then how can they expect us the best performance, for us to give best performance, you know? Like if you give me 64 and the other teacher doesn't, then how am I supposed to know where I am at? Apart from that, the forum, like, yeah, we do have like buddy scheme where the postgraduate students can come and like meet up and everything, but we need to promote that more. We need to promote that. And also there has to be like, we try to separate international students. Like we don't need to separate international students. We need to combine them together. We should have international themed events, not for international students. We are not trying to separate, like saying no, British students shouldn't be like talking to international students, nothing like that. And also when we talk about like postgraduate students, promoting postgraduate, we should be promoting the undergraduate and postgraduate to combine together, to have that kind of harmony between them, you know. So yes, there has to be, a lot needs to be done. And one of my main points in the manifesto was to promote the postgraduate students, to have events where they can come together, to also have like a suggestion box where they can, you know, like suggest. They don't have to set up a meeting because no one wants to do that. None of the postgrad students have time to do that. And also for separate study spaces, also maybe a napping pod like they do in airports, because I literally spent 5 days in the library straight before my assignment because it was so hectic. So yeah, it's like, yeah, as you said, it's a lot to be done.
Points, both make excellent points. Now let's move on to the manifesto questions, the individual questions for both of you. So Afreen, let's start with you. You say in your manifesto that you want to create a separate module that will help international students better understand the marking criteria and module guidelines. Why do you think such a module would be necessary on these types of, or isn't this type of information already available for students for each of the modules they're taking anyway?
Okay, so to begin with, I would start with an example. Like we have Skills Hub, right? And in there you can find like how to write a dissertation, how to write an essay and everything. Yeah. Apart from that, we still have 3 classes on dissertation, like how to write dissertation for law. See, that is where the difference lies. Skills Hub, they give a general information like how to write an essay, how to write a dissertation. But for law, how to write an essay for a law student and how to write an essay for an English student, it's completely different. So it like I attended all of those skills hub like workshops. It didn't really help me because at the end of the day the pattern was different. What my teacher wanted from me was different. Like, yeah, I get a general overview, but what specifically they need from us, it's completely different from the generic one. So yes, that is why when my teacher was giving me dissertation classes now for law, and the one that I received from Skills Hub was completely different. Like, they specifically told us, like, okay, you need to do this, and after this you need to do this. These are the things you need to do. So yes, so we as international students, we come from different background, different studying style. So most of us, when we start studying, our teachers are obviously very encouraging, and they don't really criticize us in class, and they would be like, yeah, that works too, and everything works. But when you write it and you get the result, you get like 55. That's not good. When you go back home, you still have that 55, no matter what you learn. So yeah, we need to start pushing that so that the students know what is wanted from them, what is expected of them to write, apart from like being the general. So that is why I even talked to my course convener, and he agreed to do this because I'm a student rep. So yeah, he agreed to hold like a legal workshop for international students where they can actually come and converse and talk about the problems, what they need to like improve on, how they can actually understand like what their teacher wants from them. So yeah, I guess it's very important to have a separate module for that.
Very interesting policy idea. All right. Perfect. Benjamin, moving on to you. So one of your manifesto points is to campaign for the reinstatement of the doctoral overseas grant. Could you expand a little bit more, like what this is, and why do you think it's important for postgraduate students? What is your plan of action for this campaign?
Okay, so it's a non-means tested grant which was available annually for research students. So if a research student finds a conference, for example, that they are interested in attending, which would support their research topic, then the grant was there to pay for travel primarily. This obviously feeds directly back into the research ethos of Sussex. Yeah. So the idea of the grant being scrapped, it being cancelled, is a step backwards as far as I can see, and all the research students that I've spoken to, not only in terms of their own personal and professional development, but also in terms of how research students feed into the wider research community and the development of the university itself. It was the decision to scrap the grant was made unilaterally by the university without consultation. There were even students that were applying for the grant after it had been cancelled because schools didn't know, individual schools didn't know that the grant had been cancelled. There's lots of confusion about some schools are announcing that they may be able to support on a school-by-school basis the grant. Some schools are saying they cannot because they don't have the funds. So the first thing that needs to be done is to go back to the university and seek clarification about if schools are individually in a position to be able to support the reinstatement of the grant. If some schools are, then to work with those schools. But the end goal is to have it reinstated university-wide because it's a very short-sighted decision, and it isn't, the way in which it was done was very short-sighted as well, negating the research community and just unilaterally scrapping it. So yeah, so it will be quite a long process of renegotiation, and but I'm definitely up for that.
Well, thank you both so much. Those are the questions that I have for you. Best of luck with your campaigns, and thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next, we are going to be talking to Nina Hallberg and Terry Prince-Ille, who are running for the position of welfare officers next year. Let's take a look at some of their manifesto points.
Hi, I'm Nina. I'm running for welfare officer. If elected, I would like to work on the support services that we already have, better the long waiting lists for the Student Life Centre, and improve on the spaces that we already have, since it's very busy on campus. There's not enough space to study, park or live. Better student safety on and off campus when you're coming back home after a night out, or on campus in general. There's not enough lighting and stuff like that. Better the representation, engagement and support for international students, aiming for a full-time international students officer in the SU, and to get a truly accessible campus.
Hi, I'm Terry and I'm running for Welfare Officer in the upcoming student elections. My main aims include destigmatising mental health by increasing awareness and support here at Sussex. I also want to bring Nightline, a student listening service run by students for students, to Sussex. And one of my other main aims is to promote healthy relationships and consent, mainly via the Preda programme, which is starting next term. You can view more about me and my manifesto online. Thank you.
Hello, welcome back. I'm joined now in the studio by Nina and Terry. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
We're good. Great, perfect. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. Let's jump right in with the general question. So, there is a lot of debate around the issues with the counselling services offered at Sussex. What are your thoughts on this, and how do you think these could be improved? Let's start with Nina.
Well, I think big thing with the officer role in general is to stop being the university, and if elected I would like to continue what the SU and MI this year have been doing to get the university to invest more in the counselling services, which they have not been doing. They just keep taking more and more students and not investing on the resources that we have. But if that's not possible, then I want to look at adding support services from either from the SU or outside of the SU, and literally we just need more.
Perfect. Terry, what are your thoughts on this?
I feel like there's quite a lot of other services that could be used around Brighton that just aren't well known about, such as any of the mental health numbers. I normally keep one on me, but in terms of the actual counselling service, I think the issue is room space. I think I hired quite a lot of counsellors, and it's just there's not enough rooms to actually do that, and also utilising the Student Life Centre, because quite a lot of people will not utilise that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Both excellent points. We should move on to the manifesto questions now. So, Nina, let's start with yours. You say in your manifesto that you want to ensure clubs and bars in Brighton have adequate policies regarding sexual harassment and assault, and proper practices of taking care of people who are too intoxicated. Yeah. Could you expand a little bit more on this? Why do you think the current policies are inadequate, and what exactly would you change?
Well, the thing is, I hope that all of the clubs and bars have to have some kind of policies on what they do if someone reports assault or harassment or anything. But I'm quite skeptical on if they actually enforce those policies. And I feel like this is an important issue for students specifically, because we go out so much to Brighton, and you're intoxicated or not, you probably have been harassed at least once when you've been out. And what I would do, I would like to work with, because I feel like if I would be a welfare officer, I would have kind of more power within me, because I have my title and the SU and the university, and I could try to work with the clubs and bars to ensure that they, if they have anything, and then what they have could be improved, and actually then also let students know what they should do when they face something and where to get help from.
Perfect. All right. Great. Terry, let's move on to yours. So, one of your manifesto points is to bring Nightline to Sussex. Could you explain a little bit about how this would work, and how many volunteers would we be talking about here?
So Nightline is a programme that was set up in the 1970s at the University of Essex. They basically noticed that there's high levels of stress, anxiety and suicide rates at the uni, and they wanted to do something to help. Yeah. I'm a strong believer that people need to open up a bit more and not let feelings of anything they're feeling be stuck inside, and just to talk to someone. I think it's a good service because it's anonymous, and it's also run by students, people who might understand the issues. So it runs between 8 PM and 8 AM every night, and the whole point of it is you can talk about anything you want. It's via text message, because some people may not feel comfortable going and saying stuff in person, and also off campus. You can phone in, and it's also in person drop-in, and out of other unis, it's kind of a mix of our free Wednesdays. In terms of volunteers, I have no idea. I would start it small, trial based, because we would need an in-campus space for it. But I just think it's important to have someone who can just be there to listen.
Absolutely. Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, both great answers, great policy ideas. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Those are all the questions I have for you guys. All right. Coming up next, we're going to be talking to some of the candidates for society and citizenship. We're going to do them in 2 different groups. So first off, we have Ijlal, Martha Not, and unfortunately Riz Malanzi couldn't be here today, but we'll be playing some of her manifesto points as well. So take a look at those.
Hi guys, my name is Ijlal and I'm running for Society and Citizenship Officer. If elected, I primarily plan to focus on 4 things: inclusivity, sustainability, better housing, and better representation. I want to ensure that we have an international student trustee seat. We have better representation for all people of all identities in the Students' Union. We uplift the state of all neglected accommodations. And in addition to this, we ensure that Sussex remains a sustainable place committed to environmental action.
Hiya, I'm Martha and I'm running to be Society and Citizenship Officer. As your officer, I will empower you to make change in your campus by supporting campaigns and volunteers and representing your voice to the university. I'll continue my work to make Sussex sweatshop free. I will make it easier for you to recycle and reduce food waste on campus, and I'll support you as a private sector enter to know your rights and fight exploitative landlords and agents. You should vote for me because I'm really passionate about supporting you to make Sussex a better place to be.
Hi, my name is Riz. I'm running for Society and Citizenship Officer. My manifesto is built around your community, your home, your voice. A vote for me, I'll be fighting for your housing, I'll be fighting for the environment, I'll be fighting for your community, and most importantly, I'll be fighting for you. Thank you very much.
Welcome back. I'm joined now in the studio by Martha and Ijlal. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming in. Let's jump straight in with the general question. So there's been a lot of debate around the price of on-campus student accommodation. What are your views on this, and what will you do to ensure that accommodation options are affordable relative to student budgets? Ijlal, what are your thoughts on this?
So I think for me, one of the main things is that we've already seen that the cheapest accommodation on campus has been knocked down. We have the most expensive accommodation on campus now, the East Slope building. But why do we have it? We have it because the university wants profits, right? So I think what my plan is to ensure that the university breaks away from this profit-oriented thought when going into guaranteeing housing for students. We understand that there's new accommodations that are being built on the West Slope. So I'll make sure to ensure that these accommodations are tailored towards ensuring that they're affordable for students, like we had in East Slope. It's not only for profit motives, and in addition to this, I think one of the main things that I want to address is ensuring that the cost of existing accommodations is lowered as well. And that's something that we as a union have to lobby for. As a union, it is our job to address the rights of our students, and housing is one of our most basic rights. And secondly, it's also about uplifting the state of all neglected accommodations to ensure that students have a good experience when they're here. So I think these are some of the things that I would address if elected.
Perfect. Martha, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd really agree that we've seen the new slope has been built and this new West Slope is going to happen. So I think, yeah, it's about improving the quality of the existing accommodations, so that just because students can't afford to go into these new and fancy buildings doesn't mean that they're going to have a lower quality of life at Sussex. And then about rent costs, I think continuing to lobby, there was a rent strike a few years ago, continuing to lobby the university that it isn't fair that the maximum loan barely covers the cost of the most expensive accommodations on campus. So continuing to lobby to deal with that, and then just improving quality across all of the campus accommodations.
Perfect, all right. Very good thoughts, very good ideas. Let's move on to the manifesto questions. Ijlal, I'll start with you. One of your manifesto points is to provide free bikes on campus for students to use in order to limit the use of non-sustainable transportation. Could you expand a bit on this? Where do you get the funding from? Where would these be stored? And how would students be able to access them?
So I think this is a pilot program that I would start, right? It would be on an experimental basis, right? So it wouldn't be to launch it to say that every student on campus is now going to, every new student coming in is now going to get a free bike. So my plan would be, as officers, we get an officer budget, right? So one of my plans would be to ensure that we use this budget to purchase students who are leaving, purchase their bikes, because a lot of times international students or students that are from elsewhere in the country, they want to sell off the things that they have before they leave. So my plan would be to purchase them and offer some sort of incentive for buying these to them, and then have a provision of them that around different places in campus, so that people can come and access these bikes, so they can use it on campus on a temporary basis from going to one place to another. It's not that students just take these away to their houses. It would be a program to ensure that people start using bikes on campus. So just to ensure that there is that positive air of people understanding that in the interests of sustainability and environmental action, they are using bikes to go from one place to another. So I think the funding for that would come from our officer budget. That's what my plan would be.
Perfect. It's a very good idea. So, Martha, let's go to your question. You say on your manifesto that you want to make recycling easier on campus. Why do you think that the current recycling system needs to be improved, and what would you do to improve it?
So I think from my experience in first year, when students come to university, it'll be their first time living by themselves, and you don't necessarily know what you're supposed to recycle. Sure. Like I remember on the boards in our kitchen, we had a sign on there what you're supposed to recycle. I didn't notice it until the end of the year. So I think just like maybe making it part of like the induction into your campus accommodation and just general awareness of what you can recycle will immediately make it easier for students to recycle on campus. But then outside of that, in Brighton there's not that much you can recycle. You can only recycle plastic bottles, in terms of plastic at least. So there's an organisation in Brighton, there's a few organisations, but mainly the Green Centre, that recycles a really wide range of like really unique things you just wouldn't consider you could recycle. So I've been speaking to Sussex Estates Facilities and to this Green Centre in Brighton and talking to them about making a regular thing, maybe at the Tuesday market, of where students can bring these things and like and just increase the amount of recycling happening on campus. Because I think a lot of students, they do care, but they don't know how to do it. Sure. I know I certainly didn't, so I think showing students what they can do will make it easier for students to recycle on campus.
Also a very good idea. Perfect. All right. So those are the questions I had for you two. Thanks so much, and best of luck with the campaigns.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot. All right, so next up, we're going to be talking to the second group running for Societies and Citizenship. We got Neve Sullivan and Symonds Wadiwala. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But before they come in, just a quick reminder that voting is going to be opening on the 4th of March at 9 a.m. and will be open until the 8th of March at 5 p.m. So don't forget to vote. Voting will be on www.sussexstudent.com/elections, and that's where you can vote for your favorite candidates. So don't forget to do that. So once again, we're going to have Neve Sullivan and Symonds Wadiwala coming in to speak to us. Here's a few of their manifesto points.
Hi, my name is Neve and I am running for Society and Citizenship Officer. If elected, my main priority will be developing a more sustainable campus with more recycling points and getting the university signed up to Electronics Watch. I want to create volunteering opportunities that can be accredited within your degree. I want to work with widening marginalised student participation with the Students' Union and developing a more positive experience for international students. I will also work with student-led campaigns to encourage the activist character of this university.
Hi, my name's Sim. I'm running to be the next Society and Citizenship Officer at the Students' Union. My main manifesto points are around improving the energy efficiency of housing around Brighton. I think this is really important because they contribute so much to carbon emissions, yet neither students nor landlords really have the incentive to look at this. My other manifesto points are around improving alternatives for housing off campus, and also cutting energy bills for students by switching suppliers, and holding a campaign around this. If that sounds good, vote Sim in.
All right, welcome back. I'm joined now in the studio by Symonds and Neve. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Great, thanks for coming on to the show. So let's just jump straight into the general question. There have been a lot of debates about the price of on-campus accommodation. What are your views on this, and what do you think, or what will you do to ensure the accommodation options are affordable relative to student budgets? Neve, let's start with you.
Well, I think we're all very aware of like the new East Slope development and the fact that that was built in lieu of the cheaper East Slope accommodation. And we actually talked about this at Hustings last night. I think that it's silly to say it's not going to happen. It is. It's the tide of UK universities. They're going towards making profit, and I think a lot of their profit making does come from on-campus accommodation. I think the best way to approach this is to speak with the university in a way where we can show them that providing cheaper accommodation that is of suitable standard is good for them in the long run. It's good for students, it keeps them healthy and happy, it attracts students, it lets students who otherwise would maybe not be able to afford to come to university have somewhere to live. And in the long run, it's just better for everybody. And yeah, I think the best way to tackle that is to just engage in open dialogue and make sure our voices are heard.
Perfect. Simon, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Neve just said. I think it's kind of going to happen anyway. I sit on University Senate, chaired by the Vice-Chancellor, and he just doesn't shut up about how little money the university has, how much uncertainty there is with Brexit and all of that. But I'm chair of a society called Sea Salt Housing Co-op, that's that. And we've been running for a year. We are a student housing cooperative, which is a property owned and managed by students, quite literally. They're very popular in the US. There's 3 in the country, and we're trying to set up the first one in the South. We're fairly established. We're looking into opening in September, and if elected, I want to support Sea Salt because it was first established by Aisling, the amazing police officer.
Of course, yeah. Perfect. Well, very good ideas from both of you. So let's move on now to the manifesto questions. Neve, let's start with you. So you mentioned in your manifesto that you've seen that international students have continually voiced their concerns about being isolated from the wider Sussex community. Mm-hmm. How do you think the Students' Union can make international students feel more included?
Yeah, so I'm not an international student myself. I'm from Northern Ireland, so I think I have like a bit of a middle ground where I'm not from England, but I'm from the UK. So I think in first year, I lived in a flat with a lot of international students, and I think that I felt a lot of their struggles in terms of culture shock, generally not really. Afrine was talking about this, just not really knowing what was going on when you first get here. I sit on the Students' Union Council this year, and it's been really motivating to hear, there's a lot of international students on Union Council, as there's a lot of international students at Sussex, and it's been really motivating and inspiring to hear all of these amazing people voicing these concerns and fighting for them. And I think if I was elected, I would try and do my best to not, as I'm not an international student, I don't want to overshadow their voices. I want to do what I can to amplify their voices and make sure their concerns are heard. And I think one way of doing that is to just involve them in university structures in a better way, engage them more, and make sure the representation is more fulfilled.
Perfect, all right. Simon, let's move on to your question. Yeah. You say in your manifesto that you'd like to improve energy efficiency in off-campus student accommodation and to empower students to act on this matter. Could you give a few more details on how you would accomplish this?
Yeah. So this is something I'm really passionate about. I work I study with the Sussex Energy Group. They're energy policy professors. And this is something they're trying to do nationally and internationally. As I was writing these essays last term, it came to me that I should kind of look into my own domestic energy use. And what I found out was that my energy performance certificate, a legal it's legally required for landlords to provide it, was out of date by a year. But what I did find on that was that it has a bunch of energy efficiency measures that you can take to retrofit your house to improve the energy efficiency, which will make it cheaper to heat your house, and will make it cheaper to heat your house. And so what I'd like to do is set up a alternative financing mechanism, because I don't think anyone's currently looking at this. It's vital in order to cut the carbon emissions in this city.
because students don't have the long-term vision to kind of invest in housing, whereas landlords really just want to get your money. Bit bitter. So if elected, what I would do is encourage students to make sure that they have their energy performance certificates. Even just having a voice out there, I want to like try and express how important that is, because I don't think anyone's ever talked to me about energy in private rented housing. And also switching your energy suppliers. I did an online check. There's 19 tariffs that are cheaper than the one I currently pay. In fact, the cheapest one is by a renewable energy supplier. Who wouldn't want that, right? But it's just, you don't know. I think that anyone in the university, so I want to work with the University Student Union, but they themselves really can't do much. It's super optimistic. Working with the City Council and working with schemes like the Good Landlord Scheme to being optimistic, you can't make it a legal requirement, but you can put incentives in place. Yeah, it's optimistic, but it would be amazing to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right, both of you, very good points, very good ideas. That's all the questions I have for you, so thank you so much for coming on the show.
You.
Perfect. Best of luck with the campaigns.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Coming up now is the presidential candidates. We're going to be talking to them in two groups once again. First of all, talking to Jonathan Busby and Ahmad Nakhuddin. So let's take a quick look at their manifesto points.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Busby. I'm running for President of the Student Union. My main policies are I want to improve the student volunteering hub, approve training for all student volunteers, and have an open door policies so I can hear what students want me to achieve.
Hey guys, I'm Ahmed. I'm running for Union President, and as you may have read my manifestos, I have 2 key points over there. The first key point is to make sure that the bus companies maintain their side of the deal as have been done by the previous full-time officers. And the second part is to make sure that there are digital submissions for receipts. And finally, just so you know, in the spirit of Brighton, just want to make sure that I am open and welcoming as everyone else. And if you have any concerns, just holler at me. See you later on.
All right, we are back in the studio, and I'm now joined by 2 of the presidential candidates for the Students' Union election. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's jump right into the general question. With such a low voting turnout, how relevant do you think the Students' Union is to Sussex students? And how do you think this could be improved? John, let's start with you.
I think the Student Union elections are still relevant. You see the full-time officers daily around doing all sorts of stuff. The president chairs council, which has elected members on, and it's still relevant. To improve voter turnout, I think we need to try to engage students as soon as they come in and just explain that the student union is for them. And then also explain that societies and all the events put on during Freshers' Week are from the student union.
Yeah, very good ideas. Ahmad, what do you think?
So I think in regards to the voters turnouts, how are we going to get more voters in this year, this time around, would be if we have multiple language officers on point. Because at this point, if you see the Chinese students, mainly in the uni, has been much more secluded, by the way. So that could be partly because English is not their first language, and also the government's restrictions as well. So I think if we do multiple language for the officers, it would be great.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. Both very good ideas. Thank you so much for that. Let's move on to the manifesto points now. So, John, let's start with you. You say in your manifesto that you want to have a backup pop-up library for peak times to help students achieve the grades they deserve. Why do you think this is necessary, and how exactly would it work?
Well, during assessment periods, trying to get a seat in the libraries, it's almost impossible. You have to get there at about 8 AM, and I know I've tried and been completely disappointed, and it really affects people's revision. So the way it would work would be find
a few spaces around campus, which we can use to transform into pop-up libraries, maybe borrow a laptop, portable laptop, so you can borrow laptops, use it using a card, and then take some books from the library.
Okay. Okay, very good idea. Ahmad, let's move on to your manifesto question.
All right.
You say in your manifesto that you were made aware that some of the online submissions have been changed to physical copy submissions for those going through resits.
Yep.
What is your view on this, and what would you do?
Personally, I would say emphasize on the digital submissions for resits, because partly being some of the students that might have to sit for resits might not have the capacity to come here again due to financial restrictions and all that. So if the digital option were there, I think it would help alleviate the situation. And back to the main point, what Afrin was saying about the 40% cap, I agree with her all the way. So that's my point of view on it.
Perfect. All right. Well, those are the questions that I had for you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming in, and
thank you.
Best of luck with the campaigns.
Will do.
All right. Coming up next is the final people to be on our program right now. We have the second group of presidential candidates. Philip Vasilevich and Ali Goldberg are going to be coming in to talk to us in just a moment. Let's take a look at some of their manifesto points. Thanks a lot.
This is another show VT, guys.
Hi, I'm Ali. I'm running for Student Union President. My manifesto is focusing on achievable and important goals that will change the students' lives at Sussex, including improving the mental health quality, putting on regular, fun, engaging events for all students, eliminating all core textbook costs, and stricter enforcement of anti-discrimination laws to protect the vulnerable groups on campus.
Hi, I'm Philip. I'm the current Students' Union Council Chair, and I'm running to be your next president. The main reason why is I want to make students the decision makers on everything that's happening around the university. I want it to be your choice who the next director for student experiences, as well as the other stuff within the Students' Union, such as the bar prices or the student deals that you want to see. If you want to know more, please go on the SU website and look at my manifesto.
All right. Hello and welcome back to the studio. I'm joined now by Ali and Philip. How are you guys?
Doing well. How are you?
Great, thanks. I'm great. Perfect. All right. Let's jump straight in. We got the general question. With such a low voting turnout, how relevant do you think the Students' Union is to Sussex students? And how do you think this could be improved? Ali, what are your thoughts?
So this is one of the biggest parts of my manifesto, actually, is dealing with the fact that there is currently a 16% voting turnout. And I think that is mainly down to the fact that the 16% of people that are voting are the minority, the people who care about student politics and the kind of things that a lot of presidents and other officers are putting in their manifestos, which is why I've kind of tried to tailor my manifesto to things that will affect the other 86%. Things like club nights, gigs, getting bands in, stuff that will make people excited and make them see what the union does for them. You know, back in the day, Sussex was this amazing cultural hub where we had David Bowie performing, Jimi Hendrix, Amy Winehouse, and it was stuff like that that engaged the students. I think we need to bring that kind of things back and, yeah, make it fun again.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Philip, what are your thoughts on this?
So, I think that a lot of students these days feel kind of disconnected from the Students' Union, because a lot of the times they don't even know what Students' Union does. They just think, oh, that's societies, or, you know, that's what, student rep stuff or something. So they don't actually realize what's happening. So I think more kind of promotional material, more stuff like informing and getting students activated. But also, like, one of my big points in my manifesto is putting the student back in the Students' Union, as cheesy as it is. Getting students to have an active and actually leading role in the Students' Union, for them to decide what they want to see, for them to decide the events they want to see, for them to decide, you know, everything within it, to a degree, obviously, but like, so that, you know, they would feel more involved and more part of it, basically.
Yeah, both very good points, excellent thoughts. Let's move on to the manifesto questions. Ali, let's start with you. One of your points one of the points in your manifesto is to, or mentions that you want to improve the quality of mental health services on campus. This is something that many officers have tried to achieve in the past. How would your approach differ?
Well, I think I have a very personal approach because I personally have been through the student mental health services. I've used the student support unit since day one. I know what the specific issues are. I know about the issues with wait times for counsellors and about having a limited finite number of sessions with those counsellors. So my approach is to work very closely with the student support unit and find out what it is that they need from the student union, be that more funding, be that more marketing and knowledge about accessibility. So obviously those are things that are kind of long-term goals that will take more time to build up. So in the short term, I've surveyed groups of students to find out what smaller things they want to see from the student support unit, and it's things like making the reception less open plan, so it's less intimidating for people coming in and talking about their issues that they're having, as well as things like targeting sensitivity training for specific vulnerable groups of students. There needs to be more sensitivity training around LGBT students. There needs to be counsellors available in all different languages for students who don't necessarily feel comfortable expressing their problems in English. There are a long list of short-term and long-term goals that I think need to be achieved.
Great, amazing. All right, Philip, let's move on to yours. One of your manifesto points is to introduce mandatory consent classes to educate people about the importance and nuances of consent. Could you explain a little bit more about how this would work? Would it be mandatory for every Sussex students, and how would you fund them?
So this is actually something that we have already put a policy in place, and that it's just been through the Students' Union Council for sexual safety and stuff like that, and that was one of the points there which I would like to implement so it doesn't just die away. I would work closely with the I Heart Consent campaign and have them bring in people who, because that's what the charity is all about, is teaching people on consent, and having them come in during induction week, so for freshers, when we have all of those introduction lectures, addressed from Vice Chancellor and stuff like that. And I don't see a reason why we couldn't put in a lecture on consent in there as well. But beyond that, I would also like to have like an online module on Canvas that would take about, I don't know, half an hour to complete. So I don't know if you've done student rep training. So a layout is such that you have you read through like a lesson, and then you answer a quiz, like a couple of questions, then you read through a lesson, answer a couple of questions, and that way you actually make sure that it's engaging and actually people listen. Because I'm the first person to admit, in lectures, I spend most of my time on my phone, you know, like stuff like that, lessons online, I would just read through, but having like a quiz would, one, eliminate the cost largely, and two, it would be, yeah, make sure that everyone is able to do it. And yeah.
Yeah, so what would happen, say, so you talked about having an online module. What would happen if someone were to fail this module?
They just retake it again until they complete it with a 100% pass rate.
And it's mandatory for all students?
I wouldn't make it mandatory for all students, and I would like to roll it out over the summer so that it's ready for Freshers Week, because that is when incidences of rape and sexual assault are most common, and it's a problem that's plaguing, well, the whole nation really, and throughout universities in the UK, that is a really major issue that I think needs to be addressed. When they did a survey, actually, BBC did back in December, they did really bad. Some of the statistics they said was just astounding, where 1/3 of men and 21% of women said that if they flirted on the dates, then, and someone was forced upon, like a woman, then it's not considered rape, even if it's not consensual. But in previous question, they said that rape is wrong. And I believe that a lot of these things come from a need to be educated and not knowing, and yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, both very good ideas, very good thoughts. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I have no more questions for you, and best of luck, of course, with the election.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, and with that comes the conclusion of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Just a quick reminder that the polls are going to be opening on the 4th of March at 9 a.m. and they will be closing on the 8th of March at 5 p.m. If you're still unsure about which candidates you're wanting to vote for, all of the manifestos and candidates are going to be on the Students' Union website. Once again, if you want to vote for your favorite candidates, you can go to the website www.sussexstudent.com/elections. The election results are going to be announced on the 8th of March as well at 6:30 p.m. in Falmer House Common Room. And we will be broadcasting that live right here on Uni TV, so be sure to tune in for that as well. That's all we have time for today. From everyone here at the studio, thank you so much for tuning in and have a good night.